Hi guys, welcome to today's session. Thank you all for your responses on yesterday. And yesterday's quiz question was, New Development Bank is formed in which summit of BRICS? So it is formed on 2014 6th BRICS summit, which is held on Fortaleza, which is in Brazil. Even UPSC also asked once about Fortaleza declaration. So that is it. We'll now start today's session. First question for the day, West Texas Intermediate WTI, sometimes seen in the news, is related to option A WHO, option B a grade of crude oil, option C OPEC, and option D Trans-Pacific Partnership. So guys, the correct answer here is it is option B, a grade of crude oil. Guys, this is a grade of crude oil, simply means a type of oil, and generally crude is oil produced in different countries around the globe, and each region has their own quality or properties of oil. And globally, if you see, there are three main types of crude oil. One is Brent crude oil, second one is West Texas Intermediate, and third one is Dubai and Oman crude, which is in Middle East. And for crude variety, there are certain properties which makes them best quality. One property is their geographic variation, which means US oil is different, Brent crude oil is from Europe, it has its own properties, and the OPEC countries geographical area has its own properties, so the quality varies on geographic variation. And other two measures are API gravity and sulfur content. API gravity is American Petroleum Institute gravity. It's a measurement that API gravity above 10 is considered as best crude oil. For example, if you take West Texas Intermediate WTI, its API content is 39.6, so it is the best. And other measurement is sulfur content. For the crude oil, however less the sulfur content is, that much good the crude oil is. And the best crude oil have least sulfur content in it. And then we have thickness and volatility, that are the other features in determining the quality of the crude. So these are the properties of the crude oil which makes them best quality. Now let's see the difference between WTI and Brent crude oil. For WTI, the API gravity is 39.6, and for Brent it is 38.06. As we discussed earlier, greater than 10 API gravity is good only, but here the best among these two is WTI. And now sulfur content, it is 0.26% in WTI, whereas in Brent it is 0.37%. So as we discussed earlier, however less the sulfur content is, the crude will be that good. So in this regard, here also WTI is the best, and WTI is very sweet crude oil, and Brent is not as sweet as WTI. Normally when sulfur content is less, the crude is more sweet. So that's why WTI is very sweet crude oil, and WTI is the superior quality. Here WTI is good for petrol and Brent is good for diesel. That is the difference. And also in pricing, WTI is cheaper than Brent, and Brent is the benchmark for international pricing. So that are the major difference between WTI and Brent. Actually, the Brent crude oil is extracted from the North Sea region near UK and Ireland. So the advantage of this is that since it is extracted in sea, it is very easy to transport via ships, and even through multiple points it can be delivered. That's why there is much demand for Brent crude oil all over the world. And if you see WTI, it is extracted from the wells of USA, and from the land it is particularly extracted. And this can be transported via pipelines, since this is formed in land. And there is one place in US called Oklahoma, that is the main delivery point to obtain this oil. So there is only one single delivery point, and pipelines are needed, and also it can be transported by trucks only. So the transportation is difficult for WTI. That's why Brent is chosen over WTI. And recently the prices of WTI, West Texas Intermediate, fell to minus $40.32 per barrel in New York. So negative price is, which is unusual. That was in news. So that's why this question is asked. Now moving to the second question. Second question is, Worldwide Help WWH, a web platform recently seen in the news, is an initiative by option A WHO, option B UNDP, option C IIT Bombay, and option D ICMR. Guys, the correct answer here is it is option C IIT Bombay. It is developed by members of IIT Bombay. It is an IT solution that can help with physical distancing, which is must in order to prevent spread of COVID-19 and eventually the community transmission. This platform, Worldwide Help, will be used to connect people seeking medical help with helpers such as doctors, and WWH platform can be used with an app or a phone. The user simply calls a dedicated number and can input basic data such as age of the person in need of help and whom they wish to solicit help from. They can supply the phone number to. This is registered as a task in the app and assigned to a primary helper who is a junior doctor or a Medicare professional. Further, the task may be redesignated by the primary helper to a senior doctor who is secondary level of helper. So that is how it is working. It is a recent development in the country. That's why this question is asked. Now moving to the third question. Third question is World Press Freedom Index 2020 recently seen in the news is released by option A New York Times, option B World Economic Forum, option C Reporters Without Borders, and option D Transparency International. Guys, the correct answer here is it is option C Reporters Without Borders. The Press Freedom Index is an annual ranking of countries compiled and published by Reporters Without Borders. It is based upon organizations' own assessment of the country's press freedom records. It intends to reflect the degree of freedom that journalists, news organizations, and netizens have in each country, and the efforts made by authorities to respect this freedom. A report said that with no murders of journalists in India in 2019 as against 6 in 2018, however, there have been constant press freedom violations, including police violence against journalists, ambushes by political activists, and reprisals instigated by criminal groups or corrupt local officials, especially in case of J&K. And for this reason, India has dropped 2 places on this year Global Press Freedom Index to be ranked on 142 of 180 countries in the annual World Press Freedom Report. India ranked better than its neighbors Pakistan and Bangladesh, but worse than Sri Lanka and Nepal. Pakistan rank is 145 and Bangladesh is on 151, and Sri Lanka ranked 127 and Nepal ranked 112. And guys, our today's quiz question is, which country topped in World Press Freedom Index 2020? So please post your answers in the comment section. That's it. That's all for today, guys. Please post your scores also in the comment section. We'll meet tomorrow with another set of questions. Thank you for watching.